A day of death and destruction in Tel Aviv and Tehran due to the conflict between Israel and Iran. 4 people were killed in Israel, according to emergency workers, after a barrage of missiles fell in multiple sites around Tel Aviv overnight. Residential areas were among the locations hit. Explosions and fire were seen, and a CNN correspondent saw one residential building that partially collapsed. It comes after Israel carried out a series of strikes on Iran on Sunday. Iran's state-affiliated news agency confirmed that 2 high-ranking officials were killed: the intelligence chief of Iran's Revolutionary Guard and his deputy. At least 224 people have been killed by Israeli airstrikes since Friday, according to Iranian authorities. Well, let's dig deeper with Alon Pinkas. He's formerly served as the Israeli Consul General in New York, and he joins me live from Tel Aviv. Thanks so much for being with me. Let's get into this. So Israel is still processing the trauma of October 7th. And now we're seeing images of fire literally raining from the skies. Is the country actually ready for the psychological toll of even more destruction and even more deaths?
The short answer is no, but you know, the public is always resilient in these instances. But but any way you look at it, Ben, it depends on the on the duration of this. I mean, if we're going to have 5, 6, 10 more nights like last night, then my answer to you would probably be somewhat different. People will question the wisdom of this entire war. People will ask, what exactly is the political objective? And people will be asking, why has all this settled into a cyclical status quo, meaning Israel is attacking targets during the day, Iran is launching salvos of missiles that are pretty effective during the night, yet Iran's military nuclear program has not been eliminated. And if this goes on, if this status quo settles in, then the national psyche will change, obviously.
Iran's retaliation was massive, hundreds of drones and ballistic missiles. How alarmed should we be by Iran's current ability to strike back? And what does it reveal about the country's military strength right now?
Well, I think, even before the war, Israel knew how many and what type of missiles that they have. And, people need to understand, or viewers that is, that these are not the rockets that were lobbed, thousands of which were lobbed from Gaza from October 23 until recently. Those rockets are deadly, yes, but they are inaccurate and they tend to explode in the air and so on. We're talking here about hundreds, perhaps thousands of ballistic missiles. Some are cruise missiles. And Iran even has supersonic missiles that, to the best of my knowledge, have not been used yet, but I don't know if that is necessarily the case. And so people knew, when I say people, it's not just the public, obviously decision makers and the military intelligence in particular, they knew. But if you've noticed something very peculiar, Ben, that until now, Israel is not targeting in a massive way Iran's military. It is, naval bases, Air Force fields, airfields, and army bases. What Israel is targeting are either Iranian Revolutionary Guard installations, which is paramilitary. It's a political military wing of the regime, and the military nuclear uranium enrichment, to be exact, infrastructure. And so these missiles, while Israel is trying to get to them before they are launched, we knew that this would be coming. On top of that, it's always good to remember that, Iran is not next door. Unlike Gaza or even Lebanon, Iran is 1,000 miles away. And to sustain an aerial campaign 1,000 miles away when aircraft are carrying both fuel and very heavy munition payloads, that's a very difficult thing to say. And Israel doesn't have thousands of jets. So you have to assume that some missiles statistically are going to penetrate the air defenses. And Iran's capability or ability, going back to your question, to launch them I don't want to say remains intact, but is still very formidable.
What do you think Israel's real endgame is right now? Is it still just about dismantling Iran's nuclear program, or has this operation evolved into something much bigger?
That's a very good question, because my answer is I don't know. And I don't know because I don't think, Ben, there is a political end to this. Now, supposedly, ostensibly, Israel's aim here was a preemptive strike against Iran's nuclear program, which was on the precipice of breaking out from being a so-called threshold state into a matter of weeks or months that they can manufacture a bomb. But there was another issue here, and that was the nuclear talks that were going on in Oman, that President Trump engaged Iran in. And Israel felt, whether it was right or wrong, depends on how you see this. Israel thought that if negotiations proceed, it'll essentially be going back to the Obama agreement of 2015. I mean, with all the bluster and I'm a great deal maker and I'm the great Donald Trump nonsense, this deal would have been basically going back to the deal that the same Trump abandoned or unilaterally withdrew from in 2018. So the idea behind this was to strike as much as possible. Bear in mind, Ben, that Israel cannot dismantle, cannot eliminate Iran's nuclear infrastructure, because some of it, particularly the enrichment facility in Fordo, which is just south of the capital, Tehran, that is not only fortified, but it is dug very deep, 80 meters, almost 90 yards down into a mountain. And in order to neutralize that, in order to destroy that, you need munitions that Israel doesn't have, and the ability to carry them with bombers that Israel doesn't have. So going back, my too long of an answer to you, I think that Israel's Mr. Netanyahu's political gain here, political objective here, was to lure or drag the U.S. into the war. Now, if that results in regime change, that would be a bonus, according to Mr. Netanyahu. But I don't think that that was the explicit aim or objective at the outset.
You kind of just touched on it, but I want to ask it anyway. President Trump said this week that talking can still work. In your view, how realistic is that? Does anybody actually believe that has potential?
There are two ways of looking at it. The good news is that he's the president of the United States of America. And if he puts his mind to it and applies the necessary pressures and presents Iran with some kind of a, so-called off-ramp or a golden bridge, some plan that is both face-saving and respectable, yet at the same time ends the war, he can do this. On the other hand, there's also bad news, because this is Donald Trump, and he said the same thing about Ukraine, about the war in Ukraine, that it should stop, and then said that I can stop it in 24 hours, and 6 months later, guess what? He didn't. And he said that the war in Gaza should stop immediately, and guess what? 6 months later, it didn't. My point is, yes, there is room to do this. But if you notice, and I'm sure you have been, Trump says two different things every day. It begins with the war must stop and we need to start talking. And then it ends with, well, perhaps, sometimes two nations need to fight it out and the Iranians should know that more is coming. So which Donald Trump are you going to pay attention to here? It's very difficult. Almost impossible to to analyze this rationally.
Learned so much from that. We appreciate it, and this is only beginning. So we are definitely going to be speaking to you again soon. Alon Pinkas, thank you so much for now. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben. Good morning.